There's a massive update that came to Backpackbattles, actually huge, like so many significant things. So let's take a look at it together. Now, they did mention that in the patch notes, it is really experimental, so they're gonna find out which ones they like, meaning some of these, if they end up being too game warping or too annoying, will be reverted. So we'll see how much of this actually stays in the game. And they mentioned that class balance might be wonky for a bit. Don't worry, we have an eye on that. So also keep that in mind if your favorite class is a little bit worse or better than the other. Hopefully that gets balanced soon as well. First one is a new item, Lump of Gold. Now I really like this item because, well, it's a common, you find it early, it's really cheap, it's 2 gold, so picking it up doesn't hurt too much, and it's super flexible. It plays like a gem. You can either play it in your backpack, put on a weapon, or put it on armor, and it has a different effect then. If you put it on a weapon, it has 60% chance to deal +1 damage, so kind of like a whetstone, but a cheaper whetstone and only on 1 weapon, and it's not guaranteed. So it's just a little bonus, I guess. If you put it on armor, you get start of battle free armor, not that much, but also resists the debuff, which you just resist the poison from Reaper. This could be okay. I feel like these lumps of coal are just nice small benefits. They're not super significant. And if you put it in the backpack, after 3 seconds, it will gain you a random buff and inflict a random debuff. Now, buffs can range from anything, like could be really good for you, could be really bad. Same with debuffs, they could be really good or bad against that opponent. So it's just a bit of randomness, it's just small little bonuses. I think I'm probably taking up Lump of Coal quite a bit because, again, it doesn't really hurt that much to get. It's just small things to upgrade your board with, but I don't think it's like something you're hard looking for any particular reason. When it comes to balance, now this is super interesting. Both classes start with more bags, more gold, and less items. So Ranger, for example, doesn't start with a sword anymore. Reaper also, as you see here, has like completely different configuration, extra backpack, so they both have more space now, meaning, for example, if you want to make a shovel, that's a lot easier because first of all you have more gold, but also you have more space to make it. While previously Reaper did not have the space, you would have to buy the space first, making it pretty awkward to do on turn 1. And this means that your early game will look a whole lot different because previously every ranger had a sword, so very likely you picked up a second sword and a whetstone, and that was your opener because that's the strongest thing you can do on ranger most of the time. But yeah, we might see a lot more change now, a lot more different openers that are viable and that people are experimenting with and wanting to play. Now the next one, I think this is the biggest change that they added. It's gonna actually shake up the game in a way that some people might really enjoy and others might not. So rolls now are scaled up, so every 3 rolls it costs 1 more gold, so you'll have to spend 2 gold to roll, and then after 9 rolls it goes to 3. This is really good if you value flexibility, if you like just seeing what you get offered, making something cool happen. And every game will play pretty different now because you cannot really hard roll for stuff anymore. So trying to force double Falcon Blade, for example, with Carrot Goobert, which used to be one of the strongest compositions, will be a lot harder. Or trying to force any composition for that matter, like Crossblades or Claws of Attack or whatever, it will be a lot tougher to just hard roll for the pieces that you need. So this is a bad thing. If you are like a fan of 1 or 2 specific compositions, you will have a tougher time looking for that specifically, but it also means you will face less of those stupid high roll builds. So you will face less like the perfect Carrot Group setup or the perfect Fatigue Reaper build. Your opponents on average will be more of a mixed bag of things they found throughout the game, which I think is fun. I think it's fun to see probably more variety. Now, subclasses, which are like the special items that you get on turn 8, are now down to turn 7. So you get them a turn earlier, meaning you will have to decide earlier what direction you want to go, what you're building, what is most useful to you. This weapon, Fancy Fencing Rapier, got buffed again. It's still not a great weapon to keep in the late game. The effect just isn't good enough or like worth it, or compared to other weapons it doesn't scale well enough. But anyway, the cooldown went down, so it's still strong early. Like it will still win you fights if you hit it early, I suppose. Mana Orb. Now this is something most people didn't even know about, but they removed the mana limit and overflow effect. Overflow effect, I think that was just dealing damage once it reached max mana, because I remember winning because of this. Mana Orb deals 2 damage once you have max mana, it can't generate you more, and I dealt like 4 crit damage with Mana Orb to kill someone, so that cannot happen anymore. That is removed. They also reworked Mana First. This weapon did not see a lot of play. I think it's a fun weapon to play with, it's a pretty unique one, but yeah, it's just not that good because it doesn't scale up that well. But they removed the mana limit, lifesteal triggers on mana gained, so that's also a really big deal, and it is increased by Vampirism, which is massive. Now we have another tool for Vampirism, which is not that great right now, You only see it in like Bloodthorn, but they also buffed Blood Harvester last week, so now we have more support for Vampirism. Now I assume this weapon will be better in Reaper, because Reaper has the item that improves like lifesteal. So yeah, that's pretty cool. This might see more play now. Also, they buffed the accuracy from 90 to 100 just to make the weapon even better. Falcon Blade got nerfed again. It's still too good of a weapon. The cooldown went from 2 seconds to 2.2. So we'll definitely see a lot less Falcons now, especially now that it is harder to force things. I think it's still decent though. I think it's still decent. Carrot Goober, the Empower duration went from 5 seconds to 4. So the main reason why Carrot Goober was so good is because you could stack a lot of damage with it quickly with the Empower. So that will be still possible, but it fades faster. And now I think Carrot Goobers, like I love making them mainly because they're cleansing effect. So I think that will still be relevant. You will still want to make these just because they cleanse debuffs, so it's great against poison builds or blind builds. Now you have Corrupted Crystal, which also is like the key centerpiece to fatigue builds. Now when it's put in your backpack, the cooldown got nerfed again from 4.5 to 5 seconds. Mr. Struggles also got nerfed, which is the dull cooldown from 2.5 to 3. So fatigue, another really big hit. I think fatigue will always still be playable though, because even though you make these worse, you can just stack more and more armor, and even though you kill them slower with fatigue, you can just theoretically sometimes stall forever against certain compositions. So I think like fatigue still has a lot of stall. Even though this gets nerfed, it should still be playable. Piercing Arrow, which is the special item for Ranger, the shape changed. So as you will see here, instead of what like the bow shape that it used to have, it has now this very interesting shape, which is pretty good because you can put a weapon on top or at the bottom, and it both triggers on that weapon and it gives it the bonus to that weapon. While previously you had to make the sacrifice, like you have to position your arrow in a way that it either triggers on your weapons to scale up luck really quickly, then the arrow doesn't see it, so it doesn't give the buff to those weapons. So now you can do both, so that is the buff. Now the nerf is, well, first of all, the luck chance went from 50 to 40, so it's harder to generate your luck, but also you have less spots. You have less places to trigger the arrow, and you have less places to put weapons to buff. So theoretically it is worse in the sense that you can buff less weapons with it or trigger it less. But I think this actually, the shape was a buff just because of the simple fact that you can now much more easily position in a way to get like a lot of value out of it. Reflect effects now reflect timed buffs and debuff stacks with the same duration. This impacts Ruby Egg, Ruby Whelp, and Mr. Struggles. What this means, I think, is that, for example, with Lightsaber, if you inflict blind on someone, it used to just reflect the blind and that was permanent. But the blind with Lightsaber only lasts for a couple seconds. So now the blind that is reflected should also last a couple seconds and then fade away. That's how I think this what this means. Steel Goobert got buffed, so now gives you more block. Steel Goobert didn't see a lot of play. It used to be really strong, then it got worse, and now I think it's strong again because, you know, the other Goobers got nerfed, Falcon Blade got nerfed, all of the other ways to like force stuff. I think Steel Goobert is gonna see resurrection. Death Sight, the stamina cost got reduced from 2 to 1.5. Deck of cards now gives +2 luck at the start of battle. So luck generation, Reaper used to not really have that. You could get it with a card, like there's a card that gives you luck, I'm pretty sure. But now Deck of Cards actually has a proper use as well. You can play it to do more than just flip over other cards or roll cards. So I like this a lot. Yeah, we might see more Deck of Cards. I think it's actually good to play. And Lucky Piggy, the chance went from 20 to 25. But now there's more reasons to make a Lucky Piggy, which is a pig and 2 clovers to just boost chances even more. Fixes, crit numbers are big again. Okay, we have big crit numbers. Default battle speed can now go down to 0. Okay, I'm not sure why you would do this. Added particles for Carrot Goobert. Okay, more effects, cool. Temporary buffs as debuff stacks now show their duration in the combat log, and when they time out, they are logged as timeouts. Okay, more info. Reworded Blood Goobert. So functionally it's still the same, and added reflected label. So that was a patch, a really significant one, a lot of big changes. We'll see which ones will survive this week. Again, I'll be live most days and I'll be posting daily, so if you want to see how this affects the game, then, you know, hope you will enjoy the content. Thank you for watching, and hope you have a good day.